With most of us holed up in our houses and apartments right now, we're all looking for things to do in order to pass the time. Luckily, I have an answer for you guys, and right now there's no better time to get immersed in a seriously sinister and fun game that you can play with family and friends, or just by yourself in case you're alone. It's called Hunt a Killer, and we're lucky to have them sponsoring us on this video because it's a match made in heaven, and right now they're offering 20% off your order if you use the promo code SCARY. Hunt a Killer launches you right into the middle of an ongoing murder mystery investigation. It's a lot of fun because you get to decipher codes, examine clues, and solve puzzles, all in the name of hunting down a killer. You get to actually sift through evidence, case files, and even audio recordings until you crack the case. So check out Hunt a Killer and use our discount code SCARY for 20% off your first box. Just click the link in the description below and get 20% off with the discount code SCARY. Strange and Scary Mysteries of the Month, March 2020. Strange and Scary Mysteries of the Month is a compilation of the weird, disturbing, and downright baffling stories currently happening in our world. From UFOs to serial killers, ancient sites, mysterious creatures, and even ghosts. These are the Strange and Scary Mysteries of the Month from March 2020. Number 5. Frozen Bodies at Chris Pratt Film Shoot. Actor Chris Pratt appeared on Ellen last February, telling of a fantastic tale about finding frozen bodies on ice while they were shooting an upcoming flick, The Tomorrow War, on an Icelandic glacier. According to him, the fully preserved bodies were a couple who fell into the ice cap crevice while they were hiking. The couple went missing for about 80 years and were fully preserved in the glacier with their hiking clothes still on. All of their supplies and rations were there too. It's likely the couple had gone hiking in the area around the 1930s or 40s. Days after the actor shared his story, several people were curious about the frozen bodies he mentioned. This led to an inquiry by Icelandic reporter Ingunn Kristjánsdóttir. He asked local police to confirm the actor's tale, but they said that while fascinating, they were not aware of the issue the actor was talking about. Tall tale or not, there is some truth to the story. That is, the part where a missing couple was found preserved and buried in ice 75 years later. But instead of it happening in Iceland in 2020, the bodies were found in 2017 in the Swiss Alps. It was 1942 when Swiss shoemaker, 40-year-old Marcellin Dumoulin, and his wife, 37-year-old Francine, set out from their farm and headed out to a glacier to milk their cows who were grazing in a nearby area. Parents to 7 young children, the couple set off that day but were never seen from or heard from again. But 75 years later, a ski resort worker stumbled across the mummified remains of 2 people in an alpine glacier. The bodies were wearing their World War II era clothes. Preserved with them was a bottle, a book, and a watch. DNA formally identified the mummies as Marcellin and Francine. For years, neighbors, friends, and the residents of the area where they lived had wondered what had happened to them, asking where they could have gone and why they couldn't be found. When the couple went missing, their 7 young children were separated and lived with various families in the village. Every year on August 15th, several of the siblings would climb the glacier in order to pray. As of 2017, only 2 of the Dumoulin children were still alive. Marceline, who was 79, said that when she found out the bodies were discovered in the glacier, she knew it was her parents. She remembers telling herself, "You have my mother, you don't need to look any further." Her next priority was to make sure to give her parents the proper burial, even if it was late. Number 4. Girl found in parents' attic. It started on January 20th when an 11-year-old girl called the police and told them she was hungry and had been left alone in the home for 2 days. Authorities responded to the house of Rafael and Maribel Loera in Phoenix, Arizona, and found signs of child abuse. The Arizona Department of Child Safety removed the young girl from the home. When investigators then returned a week later, They also removed 2 other children from the premises, ages 4 and 9. The other children also had signs of abuse, with the boy having multiple bruises all over his body. But after an hour after having the children removed, firefighters received a call to the residence after reports said that smoke was coming from inside the home. After the fire was extinguished and while moving through the house and removing drywall, firefighters discovered a grisly sight. They found human bones inside. Both Rafael and Maribel were arrested. During questioning, Rafael said the body belonged to their adopted child, Anna Loera, who would have been 11 years old had she lived. She was also known as Charisma Marquez. According to the couple, Charisma suddenly became ill in July of 2017. They waited several days to get her help, but when they finally did, she died on the way to the hospital. Fearing the authorities would take away the other children, the couple decided to wrap the body in a sheet and hide it up in the attic. Investigators said the fire was started as an attempt by Rafael to kill himself, but firefighters managed to get him out of there. According to the Department of Child Services, no one had known Charisma was missing since 2017 because after the child was adopted, the Child Services Department no longer had any involvement with the family. Arizona laws require teachers, doctors, and police officers to report abuse or neglect. Everyone is encouraged to call DCS if they suspect that a child is being abused or neglected. Number 3. Radio signal from outer space. From September 2018 to October of 2019, a repeating, unusual radio signal has been recorded by the Canadian Hydrogen Intensity Mapping Experiment radio telescope. The high-tech telescope caught a series of radio signals that occurred every 16.35 days. Fast radio bursts, known as FRBs, have been recorded before, but they typically only release once, and if they do repeat, they would do so in an erratic cluster. This was the first time it's been caught following a unique and uniform pattern. The unknown object would flash 1 or 2 radio pulses every single hour for 4 straight days. Afterward, it would go silent for 12 days before it would repeat the sequence again. When researchers tracked the location of the signal, it was traced back to a spiral galaxy found 500 million light-years away from Earth. Even though it's far, it's actually the closest FRB detected to date. As to what could be causing the FRBs, scientists believe it could be a likely companion to a supermassive black hole because they last only milliseconds. FRBs are difficult to study. Of course, despite the possible explanation, many suspect they could be coming from an advanced alien civilization trying to send out a message. Those in the scientific community said this is unlikely because it would take far longer to get any message across if they only sent out the signal every 16 days. Number 2. Dr. Amy Harwick. As a family therapist, Dr. Amy Harwick devoted much of her life to helping other people work through their personal problems. But helping others doesn't guarantee that you'll be safe from those seeking to do you harm. It was in the early morning of February 15th, 2020, when LA officers responded to a call reporting that a woman was heard screaming. Once officers got there, they found the 38-year-old doctor lying unresponsive beneath a third-floor balcony in her Hollywood home. She was heavily battered and bruised as well. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, but she didn't survive her injuries. According to the coroner, Amy's injuries were consistent with a fall, but there were also signs of strangulation. During the investigation, authorities saw signs of a struggle starting upstairs. There was also possible signs of forced entry into the home before the police even got there. The night before, on February 14th, Amy had spent Valentine's night with her friends. She got home at 11 p.m., and at about 1 a.m., she still replied to a text message from one of her best friends, Robert Koshland. Shortly after replying to this message, she was accosted in her own home, strangled, and thrown off her own balcony. Police went on a hunt for the one key suspect they had, Amy's abusive ex-boyfriend, Gareth Pursehouse. To everybody else, Gareth was seen as a tall, handsome, nerdy photographer, and while the relationship between the two was initially okay, it soon turned into a nightmare for Amy. When the two broke up, Amy filed 2 restraining orders against Pursehouse, one in 2011 and another the following year, citing physical abuse. According to her friends, after the two broke up, Pursehouse continued to stalk and harass Amy. Shortly after her death, Pursehouse was arrested, but he posted a $2 million bail. He was later rearrested, but this time no bail was set for him. If convicted for the crime, he will face the death penalty or life in prison with no possibility of parole. He is charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of first-degree residential burglary with the allegation of lying in wait. Dr. Amy Harwick has appeared on reality shows, was a former model and Playboy centerfold prior to becoming a therapist. She also dated actor and TV host Drew Carey back in 2017. The two were even engaged before the relationship ended amicably in 2018. A petition, Justice for Amy, spearheaded by Carey, calls for changes against legislation on domestic violence. Number 1. Willie Godbolt. Rural Mississippi native Willie Godbolt led a life filled with violence. In February of 2020, his trial for capital murder in Pike County began. He is accused of murdering 8 people. His mother had accused his father of domestic abuse before, but the charges were later dropped. Since then, Godbolt had been in and out of trouble with the law. He eventually married and had children, but this didn't stop the violence. Godbolt's in-laws have pressed charges against him for death threats since 2015. His soon-estranged wife, Sheena, also obtained a restraining order against him for felony domestic violence. But on May 27, 2017, Godbolt headed to his in-laws' home to speak to his estranged ex-wife. By this time, the couple was in the middle of a heated custody battle for their children. Once there, Officer William Durr was called in. The officer had asked Godbolt to leave, and according to witnesses, it looked as if Godbolt was going to comply, but soon enough, he opened fire. He didn't just shoot the officer, he also killed his in-laws. His mother-in-law, Barbara, his sister-in-law, Takara, and his wife's aunt, Brenda. He then drove to what would become one more crime scene, where he killed Sheila Barag and her husband, Pharrell. Sheila was also Godbolt's sister-in-law. It's believed at some point during the shooting spree, Godbolt held a 16-year-old boy hostage who was later freed. Godbolt was arrested the following day after his shooting rampage. When asked by officers, he said his intention was to commit suicide by cop, but he had run out of bullets. Godbolt's trial is currently ongoing. So there were the strange and scary mysteries of the month for March 2020. Every day we encounter strange and baffling stories that most of us don't know what to make of. These are just a handful, but there's still so much more to uncover. If you enjoyed watching this video, then please consider supporting us on Patreon and subscribe to our channel. We have new videos coming out every Wednesday and Saturday we know you'll want to check out. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.